Okay, we move on to our reports. So 7.1 road naming proposal, Alpine Fresh Limited. This report is looking at one road and two right of ways. I welcome Susie to the table. I'll take the report as read.
Yeah, Morena. So this report is obviously for the Alpine Fresh subdivision out of Kennells Road. You'll note there that we're actually having to name two right-of-ways as per Lynn's requirements. The second right-of-way, or that of recommendation 3, actually links to the third option put forward by the developer, just due to similarities in the name proposed, Jamal and Kamal. And there could be some confusion having them so close together. And so the third option was picked as it was still associated with the farm in the area, and didn't leave the developer in an awkward situation where only one of the grandchildren have had a right-of-way named after them. So that was that was why those ones were picked. So so I worked with the developer and I'm happy with these proposals.
Lovely.
Any questions?
Any questions? No, we're happy for the recommend. Oh, sure, Councillor Scott.
No, I just wondered, sorry, this is just an action, as I was wondering if you could send Councillors Section 319 of the Local Government Act and also our council road naming policy. I think it would be really good to familiarise ourselves with that. This is the second one that's come to the table recently, and we want to welcome more subdivisions, Mr. Booth. So I think it would be really good to familiarise ourselves. I get very nervous when we are really personalising road naming, especially this one in particular. So I encourage us all just to review how this process actually works, because before we know it, this town will have some pretty interesting names.
I'll just respond briefly to that, but basically our policy says that council can name roads, whatever names they really want to do so. Our policy says that the developers are to submit three choices, three options, and then generally one of those is taken. Doesn't have to be their first choice, it can be their second, third, or it could be a totally different name again. But
That's what concerned me about this one, and I know it's not part of the recommendation, but it was even around naming, around a business, like a name, and it's really like, where's the commercial sensitivity or commercial gain to that? And so that really, I know it's not a recommendation, but that was one of the options, and that really concerns me. We don't have a Fonterra road and we don't have a Menzies road, so I think it's important that we familiarise ourselves with what our policy actually is.
That fact was recognised, and that's why that name was not considered.
Yes, Councillor Booth.
I'd be happy to move them.
Recommendations 1 to 3 as they stand?
Yep.
Lovely. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Pye. All those in favour? Aye. Carried. Okay, we'll move on to report 7.2 on page 17. Street tree replacements. So this is looking at 3 areas, one in Juruti, one at Washdike and one in Timaru. Susie and Bill, welcome.
Thank you. So as you've said, there's the 3 streets. There's one correction I'd like to make to a map for Tawa Street. It shows replacing trees from Barnes Street through past Miro Street to Konini Street. Actually, at this stage, we've only consulted as far as Miro Street, and so the proposal is to replace those. So the map's incorrect, but what I would suggest is, because there are silver birches on both sides and some of those don't find popular, they're not so popular with people, when this goes ahead, I suspect the rest of the street will want them. So what I'm suggesting is we approve it subject to consultation with the neighbours while it's here, but we only do between Miro Street and Barnes Street at this stage. So that's on page 22.
Mm-hmm. So we would change the recommendation then to
Tower, Miro to Barnes.
Yeah. Tower, Miro to Barnes. Any questions from the floor? Yes, councillor Pillington.
I guess, Bill, my question is, two questions. What sort of trees are we planting? And on a per tree basis, it seems a lot with ongoing maintenance. Do we ever think maybe we don't have to replace every tree with every tree that's being? What is our policy around that? Because it does seem a lot of money to do that. Do we have any other options other than planting trees that seem to we have to trim, neighbours complain about? Have we, thrown the ball in the air and see where it lands?
Thank you, councillor Piddington. We are proposing planting fewer trees. In the section of Tower Street, we're removing 35 and planting 20. On the right page, sorry. In Flemington and Randwick, we're removing 27 and planting 20, but in Connolly Street, we're planting 1 for 1. So, and we're planting smaller trees that cause less problems. We've got issues now. Our recycling vehicles are larger. We've got issues underground with 3 providers of fibre. We've got power, we've got water, we've got different pipes, so it's compressing. We've got overhead power lines, and it is very difficult. So we are looking to have smaller, less expensive trees to maintain, and we're introducing an approach where if we do the formative pruning when they're younger, it's always cheaper than letting them get old and then having real problems which are probably about 20 times more expensive to deal with.
Yes, councillor Pye.
I just have a question about the survey. So, for example, Flemington Street, Randwick Place, 54 residents were surveyed, 12 supported removal and replacement with kowai. So, and then 2, the status quo. So were there only 14 respondents? And I just find it hard to believe that they all picked the same tree, or did you only give them one option?
No.
Like it's the same with every single one.
So they've all had 2 or 3 options, and there are some kowais in the street already. So that's why we picked, and that's probably why they found favour with that. Again, there are some silver birches that we've been getting lots of issues about, so they want them gone, or most of them want them gone, but we're finding that we don't get as much response as we used to get generally. So either people are happy with it or they're not interested, I don't know.
But just on that note, in that example, you could argue that 12 supported the kowais and whatever the mass is on there, 32, support the status quo because it didn't return the survey.
Yep.
It looks like Susie wants to talk to that.
Yeah, so through you, Madam Chair, yes, so on the survey we basically said if you don't respond, then we'll assume that you're happy for them to be replaced. But that's not counted in the responses. So we don't count that in the response, but basically, if you're happy with what, that we want to give you a new tree and give you a new footpath, and you don't have any feedback, then that's fine. But then the ones that we counted are actually the full submissions. These streets are always also tend to be the higher complaint ones, either about the street trees or damaged footpaths. And we can't go ahead and replace a footpath in any of these streets without replacing the trees, because obviously we'd be back there within 2 years because of root damage again.
Yes, councillor Shannon.
Thank you. An unusual question, actually. Everywhere you go overseas and in the more beautiful towns around the country, there are more trees, more and more trees. What are we doing wrong? Although it's lovely that we are replacing most of the trees, what are we doing wrong here that we're constantly chopping down trees, chopping the tops off trees, making them shorter, and we've almost created an environment where our residents now hate trees, they hate leaves and the lights. And I look at so many beautiful places around the world, and even Geraldine, where they don't chop down all of their trees. And I see opportunity around our streets that don't have any trees that I think should have trees, and especially in this time and place where we should be planting more trees. So what are we doing wrong where elsewhere around the world they have large trees and they don't seem to affect their infrastructure, and they're not constantly topping them or chopping them down?
Madam Chair, I think there are a number of factors that are here, and I've asked myself the same question over the years. We have the soil type on Timaru that is loess over basalt, which makes it difficult for the trees to grow. We have narrow berms. We have footpaths and curbs being.
Right, now you're good.
We have footpaths and berms being damaged because the soil type is so compacted that the roots run along the surface. We have overhead wires, we have constraints in that. We also have a type of environment that you compare Timaru to Christchurch. We have undulating contours of the land, but we have lovely views of the mountains or the sea. In Christchurch, it's all flat, so the trees become the view that you're looking at. Whereas here, they get in the way of what's beyond it, and people generally want to cut them down. And we're bound by constraints of services, and really the trees struggle, and we don't have high rainfall, we don't have irrigation in the ground, but the soil type sort of compounds those issues, so the trees get sick, the roots are going across the top, they're struggling, they're not deep rooted, so they can't grow as well. And in a street tree or in a street environment, their life is a lot shorter than it is if they've got room to grow and good soil and things like that.
Okay. Councillor Booth.
Perhaps just going back to Councillor Puddington's point, I mean, why are we putting trees in on streets when we've got the skinny verge? It's actually causing damage issues for our footpaths and all our pipes, and I presume the roots get into the sewer pipes, all sorts of things. I mean, we sort of make a rod for our own back. And even if you prune a tree, the roots keep growing.
And I think it's one of those, there's a 50-50, there's no middle ground with trees. People love them and they want more, or they hate them and they want less. And we're in the middle. So we can plant less, we can plant more, or we can stick in the middle. And it's, no matter which way we go, we get it wrong.
I think what we are planning or proposing to do is actually plant more appropriate species that can minimise that risk.
Yeah, Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, I'm supportive of obviously the Connolly Street ones. They've been really obviously the wrong tree right from the word go, because they've been pruned because of the power lines. The power lines aren't going to disappear anytime soon, so I just hope we make the right decision on the next tree. Otherwise, we'll be back here again spending another $100,000 doing another replacement job. But the trees in Connolly Street are in bad shape. They're not only just in bad shape, some of them are half dead. Some of them have been removed by the people that live in front of them because they don't like them. So, yeah, I support having the tree upgraded.
Councillor Oliver, would you be prepared to move the recommendation?
Yeah, I'm happy to move the recommendation.
You happy? Mayor Barnes happy to second. Any other questions, comments? Okay, so we've got a mover and a seconder for the recommendation to include the My Road to Barnes Street for the Tara Street entry. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 7.3, proposed road stopping. So this is just a block away, pretty much. So I'll take the report as read.
yeah.
Andrew, will you speak to this, or Susie?
Probably I can speak to this here, but it'd be easier. Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is quite a complex thing, but it's only a very small piece of land. So it is at the end of a service lane, which runs down from Church Street, past the museum, and down to the back of Mitre 10. Being a service lane, it has the same legal rights as a public road. So we have to follow the same processes if we choose to stop it or do any sort of management of it. So this, we've received advice from our legal representatives on this, on the best way to handle it. Now, one of the reasons you have, well, when you stop a road, you have two choices. You can use the Local Government Act or you can use the Public Works Act. The difference is, Local Government Act, you have to do a full public consultation. Anybody objects to it, it then gets referred to the Environment Court for a decision. With the Public Works Act, it's basically as a council decision, which is then has to be endorsed by the Minister of Lands, I think it is. You know, they have final say, but generally that is taken as given, providing the steps have been gone through in the process. So, in the case of the small piece of land, it's right at the end of the service lane. It is accesses only Mitre 10. It doesn't access any other private property. It doesn't provide any public thoroughfare whatsoever. So, and it's surrounded there. So the proposal is that the Public Works Act is actually most appropriate to use in this particular circumstance. And the fact Mitre 10 actually are wanting to build over this piece of land to extend their, basically their shop. So the resolution is quite wordy, but it has been drafted up by our legal people to ensure that it does comply. So, have you taken any questions?
Yes, Mayor Bowen.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Piddington. Look, I'm happy to move. It enables some economic activity for that business, and it's a small piece of land, so I'm happy to move it.
Thank you. Councillor Piddington?
Just had one question. So they don't intend to put doors there to increase the traffic on that lane by the museum? There will be a solid wall? Do we know that much?
No, sorry, I don't know that answer. As far as I'm aware, they're not using it for access. No, they're not. No.
So they're not, or we don't know, because I'm not for it if it's going to increase traffic movement in that lane.
No, the designs I've seen don't have that as a door. They want to keep their security, obviously, in the one location. It's, yeah.
Councillor Pye?
I'm 100% for this because we don't want to hinder progress, but it talks about it'll be assessed valuation and that will be the cost, but who is paying for council's legal fees to do this? Because I'm not convinced if the developer's benefiting from it, that ratepayers should be paying for, because I imagine there's quite a bit of cost for council in doing this.
Yeah, as far as the process is concerned, our policy is that where a stopping is requested, the costs, the legal costs and the advertising is all paid for by the requester, person requesting it. So we will be on charging the developer.
So does that include the valuation?
Yes, it does.
Anything more? Okay, so we've got a mover, which is Mayor Bowen. Do I have a seconder? Yes, Councillor Birch. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Okay, we've got no considerations of urgent business or a minor nature, so we'll close the meeting at 11:50. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you.